What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB Saturday, June 19th.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button
And hit that bell icon.
so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top DFS picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, we have a 7-game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Walker Buehler pitching against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Walker Buehler, he's giving up a .588 OPS versus righties and a .428 OPS versus switch hitters. He's facing 4 righties and 2 switch hitters. And on top of that, the Diamondbacks have only hit 19 of his last 103 pitches. That's a 184 batting average and a huge sample size. He's 11,000 FanDuel salary. He's 100 more on DraftKings, projected at 29.6 fantasy points here tonight. He has an ERA of 2.38. His record is 6-0 on the season, pitching an average of 95 pitches per game, averaging 38 fantasy points per game. He scored 43, 37, and 43 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Walker Buehler here versus the Arizona Diamondbacks. I also like Framber Valdez pitching against a low salary batting team, the Chicago White Sox. Framber Valdez, he's only giving up a .609 OPS versus righties and a .473 OPS versus switch hitters. He's facing 6 righties and 3 switch hitters, and the White Sox have hit 1 of his last 4 pitches. Sample size is too small, so we'll throw that out. But he's 10,200 FanDuel salary. He's 700 less on DraftKings, projected at 26 fantasy points here tonight, with an ERA of 1.42. His record is 3-0 on the season, pitching an average of 92 pitches per game, averaging 42 fantasy points per game. He scored 34, 53, and 58 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Framber Valdez here versus the Chicago White Sox. Okay, let's take a look at the catcher first base position. I like Ji-Man Choi with a 13% batting advantage over Logan Gilbert. Ji-Man Choi bats 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .832 OPS versus righties. And Logan Gilbert, he's giving up a .666 OPS versus switch hitters. There's no at-bats versus Gilbert yet, but I like this pick because Ji-Man Choi is only 2,700 FanDuel salary. He's 1,500 more on DraftKings, projected at 10.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3, 6, and 0 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I think he's due for a good game here. So I like Ji-Man Choi here versus Logan Gilbert. Okay, another player that I like is Paul Goldschmidt with a 26% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Drew Smyly. Paul Goldschmidt, he's batting 3% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .823 OPS versus lefties. And Drew Smyly, he pitches 23% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a .759 OPS versus righties. Now Goldschmidt is 0 for 1 versus Smyly, and he's 3,400 FanDuel salary and 700 more on DraftKings. Projected at 10.9 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 4, 3, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Paul Goldschmidt here versus Drew Smyly. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I got a value play for you. I like Zach McKinstry with a 43% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Matt Peacock. Zach McKinstry, he's batting 6% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .742 OPS versus righties. And Matt Peacock, he throws 37% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .952 OPS versus lefties. Now there's no at-bats versus Peacock yet, but I like this pick because Zach McKinstry is only $2,400 FanDuel salary. He's $1,300 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 3 and 16 fantasy points in the last 2 games. So I like Zach McKinstry here versus Matt Peacock. Okay, another second baseman that I like is Tommy Edmund with a 56% batting advantage over that low salary pitcher, Drew Smyly. Tommy Edmund is batting 33% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .933 OPS versus lefties. And Drew Smyly, he throws his worst ball versus switch hitters, giving up a .873 OPS versus switch hitters. There's no at-bats versus Smyly yet, but Tommy Edmund is $2,700 FanDuel salary. He's $2,000 more on DraftKings, projected at 10 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 9 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 9 fantasy points last game, and we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 9.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Tommy Edmund here versus Drew Smyly. Okay, who do we have at the third base position? I like Taylor Ward with a 15% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Willie Peralta. Taylor Ward is batting 15% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .805 OPS versus righties. And Willie Peralta, not much data in yet. There's no at-bats versus Peralta.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
And Taylor Ward is $2,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $100 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but especially on DraftKings. He's projected at 8.8 fantasy points here tonight, but he's averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season, and he's been on fire, scoring 32, 29, and 10 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Taylor Ward here versus Willie Peralta. Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. I like J.P. Crawford with a 23% batting advantage over a low-salary pitcher, Josh Fleming. J.P. Crawford is batting 9% better versus lefty pitchers. He's batting a .753 OPS versus lefties. And Josh Fleming throws his worst ball versus lefty batters, 14% worse than his other pitches, giving up a .726 OPS versus lefties. There's no at-bats versus Fleming yet, and I like this pick because J.P. Crawford is only $2,700 FanDuel salary. He's $600 more on DraftKings, projected at 13.3 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 8 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 12, 7, and 3 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like J.P. Crawford here versus Josh Fleming. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Michael Brantley with a 20% batting advantage over Lance Lynn. Michael Brantley is batting 29% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .955 OPS versus righties. And Lance Lynn, he does pitch pretty well versus lefties, only giving up a .577 OPS versus lefties. But the reason that I like this pick is because you're getting a discount on Michael Brantley, but he is 8 for 23, batting a .348 batting average and a .945 OPS versus Lynn. So that's a pretty big sample size. And Michael Brantley is $2,900 FanDuel salary and $900 more on DraftKings. Projected at 11.1 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 11 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 0, 26, and 9 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Michael Brantley here versus Lance Lynn. Now I've given you a ton of value picks in this video, so I'm going to give you a stud pick here. I like Christian Yelich with a 30% batting advantage over a low salary pitcher, Austin Gomber. Christian Yelich is batting 10% better versus lefty pitchers, batting a .836 OPS versus lefties, and Austin Gomber throws 19% worse to lefties as he does righties, giving up a .621 OPS versus lefties. Christian Yelich is 1 for 3, batting a .333 batting average and a .933 OPS versus Gomber. He's $4,300 FanDuel salary. He's $1,600 more on DraftKings. Projected at 12.4 fantasy points here tonight, averaging 10 fantasy points per game on the season. He scored 6, 6, and 7 fantasy points in the last 3 games. And I like this pick because Vegas thinks this is going to be a high-scoring game. 10.5 runs scored in this game. That's their over-under. So I like Christian Yelich here versus Austin Gomber.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.